Will you please put your hands together for marine biologist David O'Sullivan? Very good. David O'Sullivan.
Thanks. So I'm a marine biologist. You can tell because I've got fish on my bag. My wife got me that bag. She was my girlfriend at the time, but clearly I snapped that one straight up. So my job often, people are very interested in marine biologists, and it inspires jealousy, sometimes admiration, sometimes lust. You have to give a bit of time to a lot of people, and they ask me, "So, oh my God, that's really interesting. What do you do?" And I say, "Well, I documented the first trophy cascade in Irish waters." And they go, "Right, what's a trophy cascade?" And that's when the population and abundance of one species is indirectly affected by the population of another species on a non-adjacent trophic level. And they go, "Okay. What else do you do?" I count fish. And then, what else? And they're, "What else?" Like, I don't even know you. I mean, I don't know why I have to try and explain myself to you, like, really, but thank you. But watch me skillfully move this conversation to my advantage. I'll say something like, "Well, I suppose I like David Attenborough." And they go, "Oh my God, I love David Attenborough so much. Did you see The Blue Planet last night with the two octopi and they were chasing the swarm of jellyfish with their tentacles?" And I'm thinking, "Come here, little fishy." The term octopi implies that the root origin of the word octopus is actually Latin, when in actual fact it's Greek, which means octopodes is more legitimate and indeed 100% correct. Although it mostly exists now in a historical context, octopuses is the correct verbalization. And also they have 4 pairs of bilateral semi-autonomous arms, not tentacles. And I doubt they were hunting the jellyfish. They wouldn't be considered prey items. And also that the collective noun for jellyfish is a smack, not a swarm. And sometimes they'll persist and they'll go like, "Oh, Mr. Know-it-all. What about the little dolphin when he swam and he tried to get the Nemo fish and then he swam through the coral? Oh, such lovely plants." And then the big jaguar shark came out and it tried to attack the dolphin, but the dolphin used sonar from the top of his head to attack the shark's swim bladder. But so then the shark couldn't stop moving and he swam away. And the dolphin escaped and was like, "Oh my God, I love the ocean, don't you?" I go, "Yes." And it's Mr. Know-it-all to you. And unfortunately for you, I'm extremely pedantic, and I find that science is the best output for my outlet for my OCD, so allow me to continue. Nemo was a clownfish, more specifically a false clownfish of the family Pomacentridae. Algae are coral, or animals, not plants. So in which case they form I'll skip that one because I forget it. Number 3, that little dolphin's actually a porpoise. You can tell because this cute nose, actually a rostrum, was slightly curved. Number 4, a jaguar shark is a fictional animal which you saw in The Life Aquatic, which stars Bill Murray as Dr. Seuss's Zoo, which is one of my favourite films, and it's up there with Octopussy, but we've already covered that one. Dolphins breathe air through their blowholes into their lungs because they're mammals, highly intelligent ones, unlike you. Some fish do have swim bladders, but they're bony fish, not cartilaginous fish like sharks. So in which case, I would doubt it was attacking the shark. And also, sharks, you seem to think sharks will die if they stop moving, but that's totally incorrect as well, because as long as they continue to pass air over their gills, they can absorb dissolved oxygen using a system called obligate ram ventilation. I don't know why I have to tell you that, but... And while I'm at it, actually, what else? What do I have to prove to you? Your whole notion of fish is totally incorrect because, there's no such thing as a fish. A fish is any member of a group of animals of craniate, gill-bearing, aquatic animals that lack limbs and digits, which includes hagfish, lampreys, cartilaginous and bony fish. But tetrapods, which include amphibians, reptiles, birds, and mammals, emerged from lobe-finned fishes. So to be honest with you, like we're all kind of fish, we're all in the same clade. A clade is like any group of organisms that exist entirely within one evolutionary chain of descent. And you know, the Romans, of course, confused because they gave us starfish, jellyfish, shellfish. All these things went in fish, but they've actually nothing to do with fish at all. You know, I know and you know that there are echinoderms, cephalopods, gastropods, bivalves, myriaplanktonic ctenophores, and a dizzying array of gastropods and other things I forgot to mention. So really, you know, there is no such thing as a fish, but thank you for your input. So anyway, they're probably not thinking lust at this point of the conversation, but fuck it, man, our Christmas parties are deadly. So anyway, speaking of lust, anyway, if you do happen to catch an eel, all its reproductive organs will shut down straight away. So if you're looking for a long-term thing, there was one scientist who was fascinated by eel sex, and he decided to couple hundreds and thousands of eels to examine their sexual organs. This was to see how they bred and all that. But he discovered, and he thought eventually that the research was inconclusive and that nothing could be proven from it, and he became entirely disenchanted with his work, and he changed his job, and he sat down and he got very upset. But he remained obsessed with fish sex for the rest of his life. His name was Sigmund Freud, and sex was his Achilles heel. My wife gave me that joke. So finally we come, just very briefly, I think there's probably a little bit of time, we're going to talk about John Lilly and his amazing blend of sex, drugs and dolphins from the 60s. So John Lilly was this kind of researcher who was kind of a bit far out there, man. And he thought dolphins were not entirely humanly intelligent and all this, and they possessed the ability for natural language. So natural language is when, you know, for example, two people who spoke different languages could come into the same room, and without having to, you know, learn each other's languages, they could essentially start communicating with each other, because we're all hardwired for language and communication. He thought dolphins could do this. So he thought dolphins could learn English. He wrote a book in 1961 called Man and Dolphin, where dolphins could learn English, join the United Nations, and essentially have input into world affairs. So John was in the 60s, and he was a big fan of LSD, which is a part of the story as well. Despite this, however, the book was extremely well received. The public thought it was fantastic, and believe it or not, some astronomers thought there was significant overlap between that story and their story, trying to find aliens and extraterrestrials and trying to communicate with them. So NASA helped John Lilly to build a lab to bring man and dolphin together to learn English. John Lilly hired a very enthusiastic assistant called Margaret Lovett, who immediately said to herself, the best way for this experiment to work is to put me living with dolphins and my subjects 24/7. John, clearly off his head in LSD, thought this was a fantastic idea. They re-engineered the entire lab, allowed it to be flooded with water, it created an interspecies cohabitation, and Margaret moved in with a male dolphin called Peter. Full time, things were getting serious. But the experiment didn't really work, for a number of reasons. One of which may have been that Peter was basically a lonely male teenager with hormone issues, which may or may not have had something to do with the fact that John Lilly had secretly begun giving him LSD. You see, Peter had like a large brain, obvious intelligence, a sleek hydrodynamic torso, pound for pound the strongest muscle mass in the animal kingdom, a throbbing penis, but unfortunately he didn't have an opposable thumb. So he started getting very frustrated. And he began presenting himself to Margaret by rubbing up and down against her leg. Margaret became very frustrated because she was trying to teach him English in the first place. You know that in school, a disruptive student. So she, in her wisdom, started giving him hand relief just to get it over with so that we could get on with teaching English. Sigmund Freud would have had an eel day. So you have a situation where NASA is paying for a dolphin to get LSD, English lessons, and hand jobs, all in the unforeseen hope that one day we might communicate with aliens who have yet been undiscovered. Looking to the sky with dolphins. All right, thank you.
David O'Sullivan, everybody.